Guys, the Eagles are up 17-0.
The Eagles are?
Are you hearing that through your wall?
No, I looked it up on Google.
It would have been cooler if you'd heard it through your wall.
Yeah. That would be nice if my neighbors were just shouting the actual score updates.
17-0!
Whoa! Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, and of course, I'm a songwriter, best known for my series of answer songs to Roy Wood's holiday classic, I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. Wrote many of them. Some of the big ones were, of course, I Wish It Could Be Boxing Day Every Day. I sincerely hope Thanksgiving would happen more often, and Labor Day should be at least twice a year.
I mean, for us commies, it is twice a year. You got May Day also.
Fair.
Oh. I thought you were going to say Memorial Day, but no.
No, that's for the soldiers.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, and I'm glad I changed my intro at the last second.
It was identical.
It was going to be a Halloween twist on that very premise. But instead, I'm co-host Jeremy and co-host Sean.
Yes.
I've entered a business partnership with your cat.
Okay. That sounds good. What are you guys doing?
So, some people know, some people don't know that wood chips can be toxic to your pets. Certain ones, if they eat them, it's a real bad situation. And me and your cat Philly Boy, we want to address this. So, we're going to be releasing pet-friendly, non-toxic certified Philly Boy Roy wood chips.
Amazing. I think that can't fail.
How often have we mentioned on the podcast that Sean's cat is named Philly Boy Roy? How accessible was that joke for our listeners?
I think now one.
At least one. Which is a best show reference.
True.
I'm co-host Peter Cook. Let's just get into the music. I'm really excited about this artist. Ruggles, play me a track. Something to make my hair grow back.
Oh, I think it's too late for both of us, Peter.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I will play you some tracks from Roy Wood's Boulders album.
Not Boulder, Colorado. Boulders.
Yeah, plural. This ain't no John Denver stuff.
Yeah, I know. Not this time.
Not this time. And I want to start with the first song on the album, Songs of Praise, Side A, Track 1.
Jeremy, I've got an important question for you.
I thought you might have some questions after that.
So many questions. Well, so we know from this podcast that you like it when the singing is good, but you hate when the singing is done by a group of children. How do you feel when the singing is done all by the lead singer in various strange pitched up versions?
Well, as long as that singer's not a child, I'm all right with it, clearly.
Okay, so it can have childlike qualities to the affected vocals as long as it's not actually a child.
Well, and if there's like a hint of sarcasm to it all.
Ooh, interesting. The critical ingredient to keep Jeremy Ruggles interested.
That's something about the backing vocals on that track that every time I listen, I think, what exactly was he going for? You can tell he's affecting his voice multiple times, overdubbing himself, knowing that he did all those voices. You can tell he's trying to go for something, but is it supposed to sound like women? Is it supposed to sound like children? Is it supposed to sound like a variety of people singing together?
It's just Roy Wood featuring the Chipmunks.
It does kind of have a chipmunk quality to it. And it's definitely being the opening track on this 1973 release by Roy Wood, his first solo album, his debut solo album under that name, Roy Wood, correct?
Correct.
It's the question going into something by Roy Wood, knowing what you know about him, is how long until things get weird? How long until something feels off or eccentric or quirky?
Yeah, and the answer is basically instantly, because when you put this album on, the first thing that happens is you think, wait, did I start it wrong? Is it not hooked up? Why am I not hearing anything?
Yeah, is this a gospel song?
Yeah, what's happening here?
Yeah, that long, slow fade in, and then you're just off the rails, but in good hands at the same time. Capable hands, at least.
In Roy's capable hands, yes. Yeah, I think if you didn't know anything about Roy Wood, it might be like, is this a gospel song? But he's as mentioned, an eccentric fellow and has kind of that sort of kind of cheeky quality to it, he may say, as a British man himself. So it's kind of sarcastic, but not in like a heavy-handed way. It really, not to get into the recommended similar albums right out of the gate, but definitely has Harry Nilsson feel to it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Good comparison. Has a similar kind of wild, spontaneous, creative energy to it where you're not quite sure where it's going to go sometimes.
Yeah. And, I don't really know the Beatles, but I've been told that he's kind of like picking up where they left off and taking pieces of what they did and rebuilding it in different ways.
Yeah, picking up the torch, running with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about his other bands that he was in because I don't want to get scolded for getting ahead of you.
Thank you, Peter.
We're just going to trust the process with Ruggles here.
Yes.
And this is an album that is relatively new to me. This is a Sean special that we were out looking at records together at a record store, and he just like puts it in your arms and is like, buy this. So I did, and it sat on my shelf in an area of albums to be listened to up until very recently. And I threw it on there and I was like, this is wild and quirky, but not in a way that's so quirky it annoys me.
Well, that's how I definitely wondered that. How much, when you proposed doing this album to us the other day, how much had you listened to it already?
Like twice.
Okay, so you'd at least heard it.
Yeah.
Because,
and it pushes the line sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even for me, it pushes the line a little bit, so I'd have to think that you'd be further along
Yeah.
than I.
I think it works for me a little bit because it's like he's not trying to be funny with his quirkiness. It's just very strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's once again similar to Harry Nilsson, where it didn't, the eccentricities of his records don't feel forced. They just feel like they're part of who he is as an artist.
So is this someone you've been listening to for a while, Sean?
Yeah, this guy's been a favorite of mine for a long time. I would say this record is one that I've had in the back of my head as being a great pick for this show since day one, honestly. Electric Light Orchestra was a band that I collected a lot in my early days of record collecting. That was an early favorite, and I kind of went out from there with associated projects and learned about Roy Wood and some of his other bands that you see out in the bins, and was just always very drawn to this like rock and pop, but very quirky and strange, and but just also such an amazing talent for those hooks, for those melodies. Like even at its strangest, it still just draws you in and has that catchy, undeniable quality to it.
Yeah, it's become apparent to me from giving some listens to this that he's an expansive fellow.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this album has one of my favorite credits lists I've ever seen. So let's just do that now. The credits for this album are Roy Wood on lead, harmony, and backing vocals, electric, acoustic, steel, and bass guitars, piano, drums, percussion, mandolin, sitar, bouzouki, banjo, cello, double bass, brass, saxophones, bassoon, recorders, harmonica, water bowl, sound effects, production, and the cover art for the album. And John Kurlander plays harmonium on track 1, and that's it.
Yeah. Legendary.
Had to have one other person involved.
Yeah, who plays a harmonium on one song. And an interesting fellow, too. I didn't really know that name, but he was an assistant engineer on the Abbey Road album with the Beatles. He made a career of recording orchestras for like huge rock and pop bands. Like almost any time there's like a big orchestra in a song, it was probably him recording it. And he also mixed the Lord of the Rings movies.
Whoa.
He was the mixing engineer on those.
Yeah. Interesting fellow.
Real behind the scenes player.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a solo album in almost the most pure possible sense, in that he does pretty much every single thing on it. And there are a lot of things on it.
Yes. Many, many things. I'm all about that water bowl, though.
Oh, that one, that's kind of a skipper song for me. That water sound makes me tingle in a bad way.
I love it so much.
There are points on this album where I had to remind myself that it was all Roy Wood because he's playing the instruments very expertly, like the banjo song.
Yeah.
That's on here. That was, it's just, it seems he was incredibly well versed.
Yeah. The gatefold of this album is just pictures of him playing a bunch of different instruments.
Yeah.
For the album.
I hadn't seen that until I picked up your copy right before we started recording, and I found that somewhat comical because usually you open up the gatefold and you see each respective musician doing their thing in the studio and it's all just him.
Yeah. Interesting fellow. Let's get into his bio, eh?
Yeah, because he is a character that while I've known of him for a long time and know much of his work, and I've watched him perform. I think the Top of the Pop, See My Baby Jive performance is something I've viewed somewhere in the area of 15 or 20 times. I find it endlessly watchable with how much is going on in there. And he's such a wild looking cat, but I don't know anything about him personally.
Yeah, Peter sent that video to our group chat, and I was like, Peter, you gotta have a flashback trigger warning on these things.
Like an acid flashback trigger warning. There's a lot of surreal things happening, and that's worth watching after you've listened to this episode.
Correct.
Listener.
Well, Roy was born November 8th, 1947 in Birmingham, England. He started on drums and got to play at his sister's wedding his sister had like a big band play at her wedding. He got to play the drums for it when he was 6 years old.
Wow,
It's a little young in my book.
So wait, that's not when he started playing. That's when he made his professional debut.
Yes.
Interesting.
you know what though? I got to say, I'm not the one to make this judgment call, but given how many instruments he can competently, if not professionally, like completely, what am I trying to say?
Yeah, this is the sound of a man who legitimately got a head start on instruments.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. He started guitar at age 12 and formed his first band, the Falcons, at age 14. At age 17, he started a little band called The Move.
A little band called The Move.
Little old band.
Yes, which I also saw was the same year he was expelled from the Moseley College of Art, but I couldn't find why he was expelled. I have some guesses, though.
I'm sure it was a good story.
Might have been drug-related. That's pure speculation, though. The Move had a few top 10 singles in the UK, including Night of Fear and Flowers in the Rain.
Great songs.
Actually, I haven't heard The Move yet, so...
Wow. Yeah, that was really would have been my introduction to Roy Wood, would have been getting into The Move when I was in my mid to late 20s. That debut album, The Move, self-titled, that's just incredible, like pop rock record, and Roy has a strong hand in a lot of the songcraft, but they're a very talented group. Like the entirety of the group, a lot of the members brought things to the table.
Yeah, I saw in 1967 the singer of the band, Carl Wayne, left, and around then they added Jeff Lynne to the band. Roy Wood would feel pretty quickly that he wanted to go further out there than he thought fit kind of the sound of The Move. So him and Jeff Lynne and the drummer Bev Bevan decided to form a little side project called Electric Light Orchestra.
Yeah, once again, a little. Yeah, The Move were more of a mod band, and I'm sure many people are familiar with Electric Light Orchestra.
Yeah, The Move, from my understanding, didn't really take off in America at any point. If you're into that scene, you might know them, but I hadn't heard of them before this. And if I hadn't, then nobody else has.
Yeah, and around the same time as when The Move was going, Jeff Lynne was in another band called The Idle Race. That was a similar late 60s kind of psych pop group that's also absolutely incredible and worth checking out.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's another one I learned about from the old blogs back in the day.
Yeah, and I had read that, like, the offer for Jeff Lynne to join The Move, Jeff was, like, really hesitant at first. Like, he kind of turned it down at first because he wanted to focus on The Idle Race. And then Roy Wood kind of kept pushing, and Jeff was like, yeah, I'll join, but I'd rather, like, do something new and boundary pushing.
That must be where ELO came from.
Exactly.
Well, they record their first album, the debut album for Electric Light Orchestra, and Roy is like, I think I'm out of here, actually.
Didn't last long.
Yeah, from what I saw, he mostly blamed the manager for them, Don Arden, who Roy described as crooked and like a wannabe gangster kind of guy.
Yeah, and apparently most of these statements about the manager he made, like, right after the manager died. People are like, hey, are you sad about this guy dying? And he was like, no, I misplaced the number of the flower shop. Also, he ruined my career.
Well, from my understanding, he wasn't the only one who felt that way.
Yeah, I'm not saying he was wrong in any way, but yeah.
Yeah, including his daughter, Sharon Osbourne, who was estranged from him for many years and has some, quotes on the record and kind of taking glee in his business failures as he kind of blew up his business because he was, shady and crooked.
Wow, yeah, Sharon Osbourne is Don Arden's daughter.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, people just kind of assumed that Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood must have parted ways because they got in a fight. Two genius level songwriters, strong creative types. Everyone just kind of assumes like, oh, they couldn't hang, too many ideas. But it would seem that maybe wasn't the case. They were friends when they were in the band. They seem to be friendly ever since then. And yeah, one of the theories was that the manager had the idea like, well, if I have these two guys who are talented, I'd make more money if they were in two different bands instead of the same band. So there was like that kind of pressure to break apart that partnership.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well. Or that's what Roy alleged, is that the manager was trying to break them up and trying to make that sort of a conflict that people already kind of understand. Before we go any further, I want to play another cut from this album, one that really jumped out to me because I feel like it has a very different meaning in the context of our modern times than it must have back then. So I want to play Miss Clark and the Computer. That's side B, track 2. Yeah, so a Madrigal song about a computer falling in love with the technician using it, which...
Cutting edge stuff at the time.
Yeah, I imagine was very imaginative and not like terribly realistic at the time. And now we're kind of on the cusp of that becoming maybe a real thing soon.
50 years will do that.
Yeah, and stylistically, there's several moments on this album, that song being one of them, that it just really sounds about 20 years ahead of its time. Songs like that really feel like they would have been at home as like a small label, quirky indies release, like someone should be performing that song on tour with Thinking Feller Union or something.
Yeah, the way it kind of just bursts into like a jazz bridge suddenly, and yeah, all the twinkly, strange sounds. Very interesting song to me.
Yeah, it's got that proto bedroom pop vibe.
Yeah. So let's pick up in the timeline here.
Where were we?
We are Roy leaving Electric Light Orchestra, which of course caused ELO to do nothing important after that. I'm pretty sure.
The story ends right there.
Yeah. Oh, wait, it didn't. Jeff Lynne took the reins and they got super duper duper famous. And put out a bunch of great material without Roy, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say that I love the combination of them and I love Roy Wood, but probably my favorite ELO album is the one they did right after he left on the third day.
Did he have any creative input on that one?
No, he's on part of the second album. Like he quit during the sessions for that. So the third album is the first one where he's uninvolved entirely.
Okay. So it's that third album that's your favorite.
Yes. Despite his absence.
Well, I mean, in some cases, it's for the best. You know, that gave Jeff Lynne the room to make ELO what we know it to be. And Roy Wood went off and did some other things I'm led to believe. Jeremy, maybe you're going to tell us about them.
Yeah. He started writing songs for other people and like producing bands and stuff. I saw the first song we played, Songs of Praise, he actually wrote for a band called the New Seekers. And it was like entered into the Eurovision 1972 contest. So that was odd. And I was like, are the New Seekers like actually religious then? I don't know.
No more info on them.
No.
We should probably stick to Roy.
Let's stick to Roy. He also formed a band called Wizard with 2 Z's.
Yeah, Wizard.
He started doing solo stuff as well, which he actually recorded this album in 1971 before forming Wizard.
You're committed to that.
I'm committed now. And then they shelved it, the record label, for a while, so it didn't actually come out until 1973 because of the success of ELO's first album. They were kind of like holding it off for whatever reason. But
well, and it looked to me like the recording dates for this album went back as far as 1969 through 71.
Yeah, it was done and ready to go in 71.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if he's playing every single instrument, it's going to take some time, and he's doing other bands.
Yeah, like multiple other bands.
Yeah.
And recording the Wizard debut album, Wizard Brew, that came out like within a month of this album, Boulders.
Now, did you get a chance to listen to much Wizard in preparing for this?
I did not, other than the video that Peter sent me of See My Baby Jive.
Wizard stuff is great. I realize that that's kind of what I know. A lot of the Wizard stuff more than I think I knew stuff that was under his name as just Roy Wood. I have a collection that I got while I was in Norway a couple years back now. That's like a UK singles collection, but it's a variety of bands he was involved in that are all collected in one spot. You know, Roy Wood singles all in one spot. And I think that it was more Wizard than Roy Wood solo, at least at a glance.
I would also like to point out that the second Wizard album is probably one of the most misfiled records in a record store, because their second album introducing Eddie and the Falcons was like a concept album for a fake band kind of thing. So most people often file that in the E section thinking that the band is actually called Eddie and the Falcons.
Yeah.
But it's Wizard.
That's how I learned of Wizard, is we were going through the bins in the project that we often refer back to, trying to just figure out what was in stock at the record store. We were looking at the record store that we were working at together many, many years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And we came across that Eddie and the Falcons, and you said, wait a minute, I just looked this up. This is Roy Wood's Wizard.
Yeah.
My life has never been the same. I think I went home that night and punched it in and saw the See My Baby Jive video, and I was probably not my best self, and I saw his wild war paint look that he has, and I thought, what on earth? This is a beautiful song, and this man scares me.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you've never been the same since. A real turning
Never.
point in the life of Peter Cook.
Yeah, that was probably 11, 12 years ago now.
Yeah, Wizard actually had a handful of hit singles, including Ballpark Incident, See My Baby Jive, Angel Fingers, and I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, none of which were included on their first album, Wizard Brew, or the subsequent album, introducing Eddie and the Falcons.
Go figure. Got to keep things difficult, right?
Yeah, that is his way. The song I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, I guess, is like still commonly played in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, he really, I think he's much more recognized in the UK than in the US.
The video for I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day is also an acid flashback piece of wonderful early 70s pop culture.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out after this. I didn't watch the video for it.
Yeah, new Christmas tradition for you.
It was enough after See My Baby Jive, right?
Yeah.
You were good there.
His first solo album, Boulders, the featured album today, was hyped by the record label as potentially changing the face of pop music. It was critically acclaimed upon its release, though it really wasn't too much of a commercial success.
Yeah. I mean, I'm nothing against this record, but I don't know that I would view it as being a sea change moment in popular music.
Yeah. I mean, even talking about how it's 20 years ahead of its time, it's not like if it was released in the 90s, it would have been a huge hit, most likely. Like, it could have been an underground classic in the 90s. Like, there's no real point where this album is topping the charts and changing the face of music.
No, I don't think there's an alternate timeline where this is Boulders is Nevermind.
Yeah. But I would like to think that a lot of those 90s people maybe knew this guy and this album and were taking a little inspiration from it.
Oh, that I don't doubt. I think Roy Wood is very much a cult musician that a lot of people who are deep in it respect and look to for inspiration.
Yeah.
From the release of this album, Roy put out 3 more solo albums in his music career, 1 more Wizard album that we mentioned. I guess there was a 3rd Wizard album that got shelved because they decided it didn't have any commercial potential. Shocker.
Yeah, and from what I understand, that band was really difficult to keep going because there were so many members. It was just an expensive group to put in a studio or take on the road.
Yeah, he loves his orchestral sound with lots and lots of things going on. He was a big fan of Phil Spector's wall of sound approach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you hear that in a lot of his work.
Yeah. Yeah, and his popularity fades as the 70s come to a close. He does some one-off songs here and there and puts out his last solo album in 1987, Starting Up.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that for someone. He's still around. I didn't realize. I guess I assumed that there was this whole like giant, massive catalog to dive into, and that was not the case for how prolific he was for a good 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, he was going nuts in the time of this album, and then, yeah, it looks like kind of switched to producing stuff more so for a little while, and then just kind of stepping away. Unfortunately, I learned this, so now you have to learn it. Roy got really into being like vocally pro-Brexit when that was happening, and is in strong support of UK Independence Party, which I'm not an expert on UK politics, but from my understanding is like a far-right anti-immigrant type party that I find that shit gross.
Yeah, that was a bummer to see that as the footnote at the end of his Wikipedia page. just in the middle of all these, like, so influential, so amazing, like, creative genius, and in his later years, right-wing politics.
Yeah, it's like, you don't want to read too far into the Van Morrison bio.
Yeah. Something's in the water out there. Our elder musicians from the UK. Someone needs to intervene.
Yeah, what's going on?
Let's play another cut here. I wanted to feature Rock Down Low to just keep on showing how expansive this album is from a genre standpoint. And that's Side A, Track 3.
Well, there's a classic example of the Roy Wood eccentricities at play. Not only there's no other way of saying it, the chipmunk intro that we heard, but then it becomes for a moment a fairly straight ahead rock song in the vein of Slade, who would have been a relatively contemporary yet new band this time. He kind of seems like he's affecting the style of the Slade vocalist Noddy Holder there. But then right in the middle, you get what sounded like a cello solo.
Yeah, this song jumped out to me because it sounds like a kind of standard rock song. When I was listening, I'm like, oh, there's no guitar. Like, that's saxophone kind of mimicking how a guitar would sound. And then, yeah, where the guitar solo would go, he puts a cello solo. Strange, even when it's like, doesn't strike you as strange right out of the gate.
Yeah, once again, it's played so well that you almost might not notice, but then when you start to analyze it, you realize something is off here.
Yeah. Yeah, I also noticed a couple times in the album, he has kind of like a Bowie sort of affectation when he sings too.
He was a huge influence on glam rock, because this is several years deep in his career. And going back to his stuff with the Moo, I know that was a huge influence on a lot of the glam stuff that would follow. I mean, like Slade.
Yeah. Well, that's his story. Don't go look at his social media, whatever he's doing now. Just pretend he hibernated away and stepped away from the public eye.
And if he hears this, thank you for all the wonderful music, Roy.
Yes. I'm glad you made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Did he make it in as a member of ELO?
Correct.
It's great that he contributed to that band, but he deserves more recognition, particularly in the United States.
Well, Sean,
Mm-hmm.
I already did a little legwork for you, but could you throw some more recommended similar albums to our listeners?
I got a few. I'm wondering if you guys might be able to guess them. I have 3 albums from 1973. 2 of them we did an episode on, and one of them we have covered this band before. Any guesses?
I'm almost positive that one of them is Andy Pratt's self-titled.
Wow, good guess, Peter. I thought that was a very clever comparison on my part, but I'm glad you were on the same page there.
As soon as you said 1973, I thought, yeah, it's probably going to be one that I was going to suggest if Sean didn't.
It's got that weirdo quality to it. It's got moments of unexpected rock and roll, but it's got some humor, but it's not just a jokey throwaway album. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting comparisons between those two in a great episode.
Yeah, that was fun. That was going back to season 1, I think.
Yeah. All right. Any more guesses, or you want me to just tell you the other 2?
Is Todd Rundgren one of them?
Absolutely. A Wizard, a True Star, 1973.
Yeah, when Jeremy gave us a couple options for albums this week, and I didn't realize that you had actually listened to them. I thought you were just saying, which one should I do? And I said, well, if you liked A Wizard, a True Star by Todd Rundgren, you'll probably like the Roy Wood album, which then I realized I didn't really know this album, but I just know Roy Wood, so I know generally what to expect.
Yeah, both these albums are definitely pushing boundaries, pushing outside of genre while still having a deep respect for early rock and roll and pop music influences.
Yeah.
Well, that leaves one guess left then.
So we covered the artist, you said, Sean, but
yes, but not the specific album. Not yet, at least.
That's so many options there. It is from 1973 as well?
It is. Debut album.
Ooh. I think you're just going to have to tell us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yes, if we were talking about idiosyncratic rock and roll influenced debut albums from 1973, then of course we have to talk about 10cc and their self-titled debut.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I kind of was already thinking about them in terms of them parting ways a few albums deep, with the Godley and Cream guys going off and doing their thing. And the other 2 guys, was it Graham Goldman, and the other guy's name escapes me, but them continuing to do the 10cc stuff. I think that was the right choice for both of those groups of musicians, the songwriting partnerships there.
Yes, I agree. And Eric Stewart is the guy you were thinking of.
Thank you.
I feel like the song Rubber Bullets could have just been on this Roy Wood album and no one would have noticed any difference. It wouldn't have been out of place at all.
Yeah, or Donna.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, very good, Sean. Thank you so much. Listeners, this is the point that we would normally tell you that if you like what you hear, you can always go on over to patreon.com/I'd Buy That Podcast to support the show. You get some more bonus content in return. And that is still the case. You can do that. You can go over to patreon.com/I'd Buy That Podcast. However, we're changing things up over there. We're changing things in general. Our Patreon, beginning in March 2025, we're going to reduce the tiers available there, just due to commitments that we all have in our life outside of the podcast. We know that many of you only hear us doing this, but we have lives outside of it.
Yeah, we make $0 each from doing this, and we've been grinding every week pretty much for over 5 years. So you're literally not allowed to be mad at us.
Yeah.
Because we're also still going to do it.
Yeah, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep doing the Patreon, but the Patreon is going to now simply be the $1 tier, which is the early access tier. You'll get the episodes a few days in advance of everyone else getting them. And then we'll have the $5 tier, which is the bonus episode tier, where every month we do a bonus episode on a 45 or something along those lines, different from the regular episodes where we do full albums. We are eliminating the $10 mix tier as well as the $25 vinyl tier. We just do not have the time to commit to taking those on every single month anymore. Of course, we thank everyone who has supported us at those levels, and we hope that you continue to support us at these reduced tiers. We will, of course, if you're hearing this for the first time, listener, and you're a supporter at one of those levels, check your email. We'll have sent information on how to continue to support the program. We are also going to be reducing the amount of regular episodes that we produce. We are finding it harder and harder to keep up on doing these weekly. So starting in March 2025, we are going to every other week with new episodes.
Yeah, and that's not we're cutting it back and then a month later the show's just going to be over and quitting. We're trying to keep this sustainable and keep it going for a long time. And it started to become apparent that if we keep up at our current schedule, it was not going to be too much longer before we were burnt out and ready to be done. And we just don't want to do that. We love this podcast. We love the listeners and fans, and we want to keep it going at a sustainable pace as long as we possibly can.
And I'm going to take a wild guess, listener. Yes, you probably haven't listened to every episode. There's over 250 episodes. You can always go to the other ones.
Yeah, take your pick. There's so many to go back to, or you can listen a second time. Some people say they're better the second time.
Yeah, and if you've somehow worked through all those main feed episodes, there's a whole lot of bonus content that we still have up, and we're still going to be making new 45 episodes in the future.
Yes, that will continue. So thank you for bearing with us as we make some adjustments here, but we really want to keep this going. We want to keep talking to you about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered for as long as we can. And with that, shall we wrap things up on Mr. Roy Wood here?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. I wanted to feature Dear Elaine, which was the only kind of single. I guess it hit like top 20 UK charts, but yeah, none of this charted in the US. But this is the one that I think owes the most to the Beatles, probably, would be a good way to put it.
Yeah, which, again, it all kind of goes back to Harry Nilsson being a good comparison. Quirky guy that really liked the Beatles and kind of carried on what they did after they were done.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Again, thank you, listeners. We will be back next week at the beginning of March 2025 with another episode, and then from there, every other week. So, again, we thank you. And with that, let's get out of here. I'm co-host Peter Cook.
I'm co-host Jeremy.
And I'm co-host Sean Hartman.
This is Side A, Track 5, Dear Elaine. And I just wanted to say also, I wish it were Halloween every day.
Every day? What about every other day? Twice a week?
That's a more reasonable scale. Okay.
All right.
It's a good thing that you didn't waste the time that you'd spent coming up with that one. And got to use it at the very end here.